Yeah, we can start now.
Very good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a special day for me because Ma'am Gay has been my guest a couple of days, weeks ago, but due to some technical issues, we weren't able to continue with her entire thought that she had. But today I'm very grateful that ma'am has joined us again with the same agenda, the same ideas, and the same vibe. I think nothing has changed. I only think I just got a haircut in between. That's it. But other than that, everything is the same. So, ma'am will be talking about the importance of effective communication with a child. And once again, to introduce ma'am, she is the president of International Young Mothers Association based in the Gambia, if I'm right, ma'am, if that's correct. If you are a
Yes.
president. Oh, thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today and helping us to continue from where we left last time around. I'll just
Oh,
add,
thank
yeah, please, ma'am, continue.
Thank you, Nehar. Thank you. As you just said, I am Miss Fatma A. I'm from the Gambia. I run a nonprofit organization called the International Young Mothers Association. I'm a public speaking and self-development trainer. I am an entrepreneur as well. I am a part of board members in different sectors and in public sectors and government sectors in both Gambia and internet abroad. So.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'll just add your presentation now. And we actually did cover a couple of slides last time around, but it would be very wonderful if you could, just take us through those slides once again, and then we'll continue from where we left last time.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you for having me again. And I'll just say, I am a communication head, I'm a public speaker, a youth activist, a child's rights advocate, an entrepreneur, and a woman leader, just as I mentioned earlier. I have been in this field for the past 8 years of my life, and I inspire women for living, and I work with children around Africa, in Uganda, Senegal, Morocco, and the Gambia as well. So this had been my field for a couple of time, and actually really honored to be welcomed here to speak on the effective of communication between the child and the parent and the child and the teacher as well. So please take me to the next slide, please, Neha. All right. And this is an introduction to my nonprofit organization. Actually, what we do, we are a female-focused organization that foster innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership. We are based in actually three different countries, which is the Gambia, Uganda, and Senegal as of now. And we are looking to expand into different communities. We're a time and place where children come and find guardians and, connect with peers, have find resources, play around, feel welcome, especially children with disabilities and their parents as well. And also, we are a movement that is created to foster and elevate digital transformation and accelerate economic development. We are in the energy, renewable energy sector, and we have really done some amazing things on the ground, that is including women and youth in our economy. So, to the next slide, please, Neha. When we say the importance of communication between a child and a parent and a child and a teacher, we should keep in mind that there's a positive atmosphere that is always involved in certain things like this, like during school hours, in the homes, in the environments that kids grow up. When a child lacks effective communication between her and her guardians, he and her guardians are, it actually has a very huge impact in his or her life as she grows. And I'm not actually talking from just research and all that. We are talking about experience, because I've worked with over 200,000 women across the country here, and the list of this women is having their three kids at least, and we have realized that most likely in the African communities, communication is very weak when it comes to between parents and their children, and teachers and the children that they teach as well. So I have this philosophy that says that teacher is actually equivalent to the parent, because what happens at school is a child stays at school from 8 o'clock till 4 p.m., which is half of the day. And then when they get home, they just have 3 4 hours with their parents, and it's time to go to bed. And during weekend days, parents are really busy taking care of home. So they spend most of the time with their teachers. So having effective communication at school is really important, as well as having effective communication in the house as well. So this is why I actually choose this topic on talking about communication, because that's the fundamental of any relationship between anyone and a child. Neha, let's go to the next slide, please. I believe that children need good communication skills, and this helps them to make friends, to learn, to let people know what they want, to understand and behave properly, appropriately, to act as matured people, to communicate. And the foundation of any relationship is essential for learning, for growing, and for social interaction. When you see kids, certain people, certain children, they just keep them their problems to themselves. When they have issues at school, when they come home, they don't even want to talk about it. This is lack of security for themselves, lack of self-love. So these things are being developed when a child actually lacks the minimum conversation skills or communication skills with the guidance or the parents or the teacher at the places that he or she spend most of his or her time. So it is important that the parents have the skills of communication with their children. Being deaf or dumb, being disabled, or physically challenged at any point of time, you have the right to have effective communication with whoever that is taking care of you. So I think communication is actually not just the fundamental, but it is the base of life. It is the foundation of everything that a child should become in the future. If we want to give a child a proper upbringing, a proper, you know maturity, in a proper, I would say a proper life, and achievements, and fulfillment, then you have to start this from a very basic level, from a foundation level. And that is when the child is actually even in his first, or in his or her first year. That is when you start to communicate with the child. That is when the child smiles, you react in certain ways that the child feel comfortable to smile at you, because that's the way that they communicate. When they cry, they have certain ways that they require for you to take care of them. And when they're grown up, they keep things to themselves. There's certain way that they expect you as a parent or a teacher to communicate back to them, and to accept feedbacks and all that stuff, to not be judgmental, because being judgmental kind of ruin a lot of things when it comes to, communication with children. Because most people, what they do is, when a child is just coming to explain certain things, all they do is just break you. No, I'm too busy, I have certain things that I have to take care of and all that. And when a child feels that you don't have that time, or you're too busy without having this communication needs with them, they feel like they're not part of you. And once they feel they're not part of the most important people of their life, they feel less worthy of themselves. And this is affecting a lot of children as at now. And even grown ups that are already, into the professional life, into the entrepreneurial journey, into the leadership sector, they have certain issues like this that is affecting their journey, just because they lack the fundamental communication with their guardians during their childhood. Neha, can you go to the next slide, please? So I believe we have actually 4 stages of childhood or adolescent childhood, and when we say these 4 stages, it's actually from newborn to infant development, and that is 0 to 1 year. That's where communication actually begins, from 0 to 1 year, because when a child is really young, small, they need certain kind of attention that requires uh, patience and understanding for, that's why people need to be really prepared to have words under them, people, young people beside them, because once you're not prepared, you will be developing someone that will not be effective in the future, someone that will grow up not having enough self-love and self-respect for themselves. So we have the toddler and preschool development, that is between 1 and 5 years. That is a very sensitive age as well, because that's where the child is actually building a foundation and learning about themselves and knowing exactly what they love to do, what they don't love to do. So without the right support, this is actually going to be difficult. And the school age development is where they start to interact with people outside of the homes. When they go to school, they meet with thousands of people, hundreds of people in school, and they try to interact with all of these people. So how a child reacts and interacts with these people is quite important in that sector, because this is when you feel like a child is actually too close up for friendship or is too open for friendship. So you could actually, bond a child and try to see how you could frame them and, have them follow a particular method of, behavior, and also have to a way to have this communication skills that they will be able to interact with different personalities. And because every time that you go, you meet people with different personalities and with different point of views in life. So the adolescent sector is also very sensitive, and that is when a child is between her teens, that's during the period of puberty, that is 13 to 19. And that stage of life, they feel they are grown and puberty is occurring, and they feel like they need more of space at some point. But when you give them the space, there are certain things that you put a limit to. There's certain things that you control, even though they wouldn't like, but it's a way of forming their maturity and adulthood as well. So it's really important for parents and guardians to pay attention to kids from the age 13 to 19. So that's when they grow up to become adults in the society, and they start to make actions. They start to take leadership courses and all those stuff. So it is really necessary when people are actually prepared for certain things at very early age. If you want a child to be brighter in the future, you start when he's actually a baby, not when he's already grown up. So having effective communication at early stage is really important for me. Thank you. Yeah, can we have the next slide, please? So we have a 7 C's of communication, and that's clarity, correctness. You have to be clear. You have to be correct in every information that you give. Once a child is feeling dishonesty and lack of correctness, when they think that what you're saying is not something that is certain and clear, they feel to not trust your judgments. They feel to not trust your, communication skills. And they feel to not trust your, communication skills. So it is really necessary when people are actually prepared for certain things at very early age. If you want a child to be brighter in the future, you start when he's actually a baby, not when he's already grown up. So having effective communication at early stage is really important for me. Thank you. Yeah, can we have the next slide, please? upbringing methods because they feel like they know more than you know. So it's really good when parents and teachers have enough research, have enough, experience in what they tell to their kids, and they're really sure about the action and the way they actually train their kids. Because now, the 21st century, I would say it's quite a very, you know, delicate space of life, because kids now grow up with skills and talents that, in the 90s, people would have to learn up to the bachelor degrees method to be able to actually even use a phone. So right now, when a child is just 4, 2, 3 years old, they can use a smartphone, they can, do certain things on PCs and all those things. So not being clear, not being correct could reduce a lot of things, because they know exactly where to find out answers. Some certain things kids will just go to Google and type. So just imagine if you tell your child or your ward certain things and they find out that it is not true, what this could bring between you and your child. So you need to be consistent. You need to have courtesy. You need to be correct. You need to be considerated, and then you need to be complete when you communicate with a child. These are really basic things that we don't have to play around with, and we have to really pay attention to this particular things. So Neha, please to the next slide. All right. How can a child feel your presence? You have to have a positive communication. You have to be paying attention. You have to be respecting the child's feeling. You have to be watching your tone of voice. You have to be listening. You have to be allocating time. So if you want your child to feel your presence, you have to really do certain things. You have to do certain things. And these are having positive communication. So Neha, if you could please next go to the next slide. So in this slide, I give about the 4S. That is shortness, strength, and simplicity, and sincerity. When you communicate and you're precise, and whatever it is that you say, it's short and it has a lot of strength, and it's simple and very sincere. It comes directly from your heart. A child tends to open up very much, and communication happens in two ways. Once a child feels that the communication that they're giving, the communication that they're receiving from you is just about you and not about them, they feel to close up to themselves. So it's really important we have a two-way communication all the time. And here are a few ways that one can improve a child's communication, and that's just being short at all time, having strength in your words, and being simple and sincere. Can we have the next slide, please? Why it won't always be smooth when selling with a child. This is actually something that's really important for me, because certain things happen during the journey, and sometimes you do certain things the child do not respect, do not appreciate, or when you actually hurt, because we are all bounded to making mistakes, and at some point we hurt our kids inside by our actions without actually really knowing, because we feel that we are adults and adults are always right, which is a very wrong concept that we have at some point. So there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect teacher, and we have to know that situation, depending on the situation, you may get to be in a heated argument with your child at least, and this is going to develop misunderstanding between you two. So this happens all the time when a child and a teacher, when a child and a parent have misunderstanding, and the child just close up entirely for years. So it is really important when we have this smooth relationship between us, and we know that things are not going to be smooth for life. So it's really something that I emphasize on, and rectifying any issue by communication truthfully, comforting, and maybe difficult, but setting aside time, talks, and settle matters calmly would be important as well. So, oh, sorry. Neha, can we have the next slide, please? All right. So we have fears, and every child has a fear, and sometimes they have fear of speech, they have fear of certain things, animals, or fear of your actions, your reactions. So once you know that the child, your child is scared of trying, and then try to get them to know actually these are not things that are worth being scared of. It's really important to have that aspect of a child. And sometimes children are even afraid of situations and objects that adults don't find threatening, like you just meet with a child, and then you have a small toy of a snake, and then he just sees this thing and starts shouting and all that stuff. As an adult, you feel like this is just a toy. Why is the child shouting and reacting in certain ways? But for them, they have this phobia of certain things, and it's really important we know what our children are scared of and try to see how we could help them on these things. So some kids like people like making fun of kids and forcing certain you know words to them, and certain kids do react really badly to certain things, and which is only not fair, and it get makes things worse for the kids. So you can help your child by taking their fears seriously and encouraging them and talking about their feelings, because once you take their fears and problems seriously, they feel like actually they matter to you and they're important, and what they're scared of is actually what being scared of, even if you're gonna show them methods and things to come over certain fears. So, but at least the minimum you could give them is to just feel their pain, to encourage them and talk about these feelings, because it is important. Even an adult need psychological support is something that is very much needed, and schools should really promote having mental health spaces in the schools. This is about wellness. This is going to support kids, because bullying occurs, especially when we are in communities where we have ethnicities and cultural barriers and all those things. So certain kids feel threatened to be in certain positions. So it's really important that we have these issues being addressed. Neha, please, the next slide. Okay, the five parenting styles that we have is the balanced parenting, the uninvolved parenting, the permissive parenting, and the strict parenting. I will take you through this parenting style, and I would say like the balanced parenting is actually one of my most appreciated type. That is when you have a parent who is balanced, who actually do not just go into conclusion without actually knowing exactly where you're coming from. We have parents who are really not involved in the kids' life. They are just ignorant about everything that happens. All they care about is they go to work, they come back from work, they give you food, and that's it. They make sure they provide the need, but they are not involved in your well-being, and that's actually not the kind of parenting I would be proud of to be. And we have the permissive parenting, that anything you want to do, they say, okay, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Parents should really learn to say no. Parents and teachers are at most they should learn to say no to kids at some point, because not everything should be available and accessible by them, because certain things actually come to harm them. So if we cannot distinguish about the different things that could harm a child, the things that a child should do or should not do, and we just open windows and doors for everything, that's pretty gonna be hard. So we have the strict parents, which we all know. I would say I had a strict parent at some point. My mom was really strict, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to even go to school parties and all that. And yet, still, I grew up to be different. But not every child has the right to be under a strict parent and yet still grow as they feel like they're not scared, they're not um, feeling the fear of having the fear of someone, having the fear of being associated in the society, having the fear of giving them having the maximum respect in society. So it's really important to have a flexible and balanced parent, because once you're strict, you're actually contaminating your kids, and you're trying to show them that that's the right way to treat children, and when they grow up, that's exactly how they end up treating their children, because of their fear. They think that the fear they have for you is the same fear that their children should have for them. So this is just going to be a lineage that is being created to you know tame people at some point. So we have the overbearing parents, they overbear everything. And that's also a parenting style that I'm really not so much interested in. So I will encourage more parents to be in a bland sector, and teachers as well to be really blunt, and to have this all the styles are really good, because a parent need to be strict at some point, they need to be permissive at some point, they need to be overbearing at some point, they need to be involved and uninvolved at some point, because we all need our privacy, we all have things that we need to do on our own, even when especially when we reach the adolescent stage, when we are going to high school and all that stuff. So but being balanced is everything that matters to me at most of the time. Yeah. Neha, please, to the next slide, please. Yeah, so it is actually said in research that experts do agree that authoritative parent is the most effective style. So if a parent is authoritative, they actually want you to do things on their own side, and it's quite fair that research things like that. But I will think that being balanced is really more important to me. So studies found that it is important, and then more likely to raise confident kids who achieve academic success, have better social skills, and are more capable at problem solving. So having the blandness of all this parenthood, it's really important for me. And next slide, please. We have different cultures in the different continents, and looking at the African continent, we have cultures and norms that are actually really different from other parts of the world. Like a child in Africa cannot look into the eyes of an adult. A child cannot sit in Africa in the middle of adults conversing. A child cannot eat in the same plate with adults and all those stuff. So we have certain norms and traditions where child are being limited, which is changing actually due to this 21st century. Certain places you have a child, when they see an adult, they have to kiss your foot. We have so different cultures. So this is purpose different. We have purpose driven cultures. We have learning cultures, playful environments, result oriented cultures. We have authority cultures. We have uh, safe and risk consciousness cultures. We have structure and methodical cultures as well. So it is really important to know the kind of society that you live in, and the kind of child that you're upbringing, and how you want them to be, and which kind of society you want to see them tomorrow in the future. So every single aspect of life, you have to know that it is actually contributing to certain people, and how much effort you put into those kind of activities is really important. And so if you want to bring up a society where children will feel the freedom of speech, the freedom of actions, the freedom of you know reactions to activities, and the freedom of leading, and being great people in the society, then it's really important to know how you bring up these kids and how you communicate with them. So effective communication is actually everything that matters when it comes to upbringing of a child. So it's important in all aspects, in the teaching industry and in the homes also. They had to the next slide, please. Children from the age 3 to 17 in Africa has had a disorder related to voice, speech, language, swallowing in the past few months, with over 31% with disorder resolved to intervention of services in the past year. Just imagine if all this 17% of children from the age 17 and 3 and 17 have actually disorders with speech, language, and swallowing, and only 31% of them have actually intervention. So imagine the other 69% of these children, how they are going to be, taken care of when they have this issue. So there's very minimum, support for children with disabilities. So with disorders, sorry, communication disorders and all that stuff. So it is important for children to give, for parents and teachers to give them this background so that they don't become victims of it. Because once there's no effective communication with the child, you are bounding them to be victims of this thing. So sometimes they end up having speech problem when they want to say something, immediately the words are in their mouth when they are running from school, running home to mommy. I want to go and tell mommy what my teacher told me today. As soon as they get to the house and you look at them into the eyes, it seems like you've actually erased every single thing that was in their brain. And this is actually happening in most societies, just because the child is so scared of the parent, and the face that you give to that child at that particular time has actually ruined the entire mood of that child, and that child might be affected at some point, growing up like that, having so much to say but yet still feeling that there's nothing to be said, could affect this child in the long run. So most of these kids are black, and they grow up in anxiety and fear with their parents and teachers, because black parents are really, really strict, if I'm just being honest, and they are purposely sometimes um, you know, thinking that the only way that they could bring up a child in the right proper way is to be strict. And sometimes I'm really amazed on how people are even thinking when it comes to training a child, because usually being strict is actually just one sector of it, and you have to be flexible at some point, and make sure that you are not taking the best part of your child just to make sure that he or she follows your rule. So we have all roads, we have principles, we have methods, we have family uh, traditions, and we want to follow these traditions, but it shouldn't be on the expense of our children's well-being as well. So head to the next slide, please. So we have actually different type of communication. Most likely, I would say four. We have the verbal communication, when two people are speaking, a child is speaking, and a parent or a teacher is speaking. And then we have the non-verbal communication, and that's when we use more of signs, more of actions than words. Then we have the written communication. Some children actually cannot come to their mom and say, "Mom, I need," like the teenagers, "I need stamp, I need centering napkins." They cannot come because they're so shy. So what they will just do is write a piece of paper and just put it by your bed, and then you wake up and you see this thing. And these things actually depends on how best your child, or bring up your child and make them feel comfortable about themselves and nature. So it's important to have actually one communication style. If possible, all of them would be great as well, because sometimes you would like to sit with your child in public and just look at the child, and then he knows exactly what mommy or daddy wants me to do. And then the listening, and that is one of the best communication skill a parent could do as well, because when you listen to a child and you hear them, it makes them feel good. Even adults, they love to be listened to. So who doesn't love to be listened to? Even if you make no sense, you want somebody to listen to you, somebody to understand what you're saying. Listening is just not about opening ears and just be there listening. It's about opening ears, brains, minds, and being part of actually the communication, giving eye contact, feedbacks. So it's really important to have actually these communications methods as a parent or a teacher. Next slide, please. So we have certain barriers, and these are like physical, psychological barriers, emotional, and cultural noise. It's like physical. When I say physical, it's like when people feel like they're physically, objected to certain things, or psychological objected to certain things. So it is affecting certain kids and their upbringing. And emotional and cultural noise as well. Language is a big barrier, because sometimes because a child doesn't really have to be yours for them to be your child. Even a word or adopted child, some people just go to different countries, and they just adopt a child from there. Or a new child come to school and not being able to speak the language there. So before they adopt, they have some barriers that is happening between them and the people that they need to communicate with. So we have lack of eye contact. Some people, more especially female kids, male kids, they like to be looked at when they talk to you. You have to look into their eyes. Even grown-up adults, male, you sometimes when they're talking to you and you're not looking at their eyes, they'll be like, "You rude, I'm talking to you and you're just throwing your face all over there." So just imagine how a child will feel if they're talking to you and you're busy doing something else. You're busy, focusing on your phone, focusing on your computer, on your work, or reading a book or something. Give them eye contact, be part of them, give body language, feel exactly what they feel when they're saying it. It's important. And information overload or lack of focus as well. This is all about, not being there when they need you the most, and not being prepared. And credibility is also very important, because these are barriers that are really taking so much time. And some people, they talk too much, and these are barriers as well, because certain people, they want to be listened to. And if you do not listen to them, you keep talking, at the end they feel like, okay, why should I even go talk to my mom? Because if I go there and I just start talking, she'll just break me and then start talking and complaining about every single thing. I did this, you did that, this is wrong, this is right, this, and be judgmental. So they would rather keep it to themselves, and this will affect a child. So what every parent or teacher should do is to understand that how the child communicates. Because one thing you do is, when you live with a child, and or you actually teaching a child, you have to take the time to understand every single child. So a real professional teacher will take only 3 to 4 days to actually know exactly what kind of child he's teaching. A parent, it could be a long journey, but actually, even the day a child is born, a parent will tell what kind of child I am having. So, understanding your child is really very good, and understanding how to communicate with this child is good, because certain babies, even babies at certain point, if you hold them certain places, they don't like it, and some babies do like that. So, when a child is born, you really have to know exactly what works with your child. Avoid lecturing all the time. We know we are experienced, we are over knowledgeable about certain things, but certain times we don't really have to lecture. We just have to be attentive. We just have to listen. So it's really important if we have to listen. And sometimes we disagree with kids, but even if we disagree, it's better we just let them finish, let them learn, and then explain ourselves. It's really important to learn to communicate and encouraging communication through play is very important as well. When you have basketball and then you playing basketball with your child or with your word, and then you're communicating about certain things that are really important, especially at a certain age. Or you play table tennis, you play cards, encouraging communication through play is also very important. Strike of communication with conversation between activities is important as well. When you have activities like you're cooking together, you're going out together, you have family time and all that stuff. So it's really important also to have uh, some conversations dragged out on those periods. And also mind your tune and ensure you are coming from a place of sincerity. Certain parents, they will just be shouting at the child like you're in a public place, and the child just dropped a bottle of water, and you're like, why are you doing that? And you just made the child feel embarrassed and stupid in front of public, and this is going to close up doors for him or her letting you go out with them at certain points. So it's really important that we pay attention to certain activities and actions that we do in public when we are with our kids or our words. So, and considering where your child is coming from and understanding their perspective and on any given situation. So when you consider actually where you are coming from, then you will be able to consider where somebody else is coming from. So if you have a child and the child is talking, do not just say answer because you want to respond to that question, but understand where actually they are picking from, where actually their words are coming from, where actually their mindset is coming from. Then you will be able to put yourself in those shoes and understand actually what they're feeling and how they're feeling it. So the things that I say, don't do it with a child, is do not foster a class or a home that is disrespectful and not acceptive of different ideas. When you live with children or you work with children, you tend to have different ideas about things, different perspective about life. And if you do not accept this thing, or you foster a place where there's no respect and dignity, then you tend to not have what you wish to have. So it's really important to not foster a place with disrespect and a place that does not foster different ideas. So it's really important to consider these things, and do not shout or consider insulting or humiliating them in front of their mates. Once you do that, you ruin a whole thing, because like um you want to have a child and you want them to feel respected between him or her mates, and once you disrespect them in front of them, you are actually degrading them. And that depends on the type of child you have. If you have a child who is a leader in the future, they will feel affected, and they will feel disrespected in public, and this might reduce and disregard how they see you as a person. So do not fail to provide feasible solutions that favor them if necessary. Sometimes you have they have issues and they need solutions to these things, and if you think it is necessary and you can do it, don't waste the chance of doing that for your child, because once they know that this is something that my mom or my teacher could have done for me, but he or she refused to do it, my father could have done done for me, and he refused to do it for me, and outsiders are doing it for me, there's a lack in there. And once that lack happens, a child doesn't feel wanted. He feels he's neglected, and when a child feels he's neglected, they end up being an I don't care child, and nobody wants to have an I don't care child in their communities and in their areas. So, and the last but not the least is, do not lie to a child, no matter what happens, no matter how tight the situation is. Do not lie to your child, because once they realize that their parents are liars, it's difficult for them to be truth tellers. So, and then sometimes they end up being not trustworthy in society. So, do not lie to your child. Thank you so very much for having me today, and I look forward to having so much more like this. And I hope that I actually did set something that one or two people could take home today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much once again for that wonderful presentation on, effective communication. I think you've not just covered stuff for children, but also how, parents could adequately interact and communicate with their child. I actually heard that, the way you interact with your children is how they grow up to be. So it becomes their attachment style, in platonic and romantic relationships ahead. So there's a lot at stake for parents when they're interacting with their children. But before we conclude, would you mind, throwing some detailed light on how teachers could interact with students in the classroom so that they don't they impact students, in a positive manner, basically.
Of course, of course. I think mainly I believe that everything that work for a parent simply work for a teacher, because teachers are next to parents, I'll say, because once you have your child and you wake up every single morning and drop her in the hands of someone to take care for hours, to watch over for hours. So you're giving them your responsibilities, and then if you are to treat them disrespectfully, you have your child treated in different manners, even at school. So it's really important for teachers to know that they are next to parents, and for parents to know that they're next to teachers. So these are like co-parents, and they share the child's life in 2 weeks. So a child spends 8 hours at school, and they spend it with their teachers and co-student and their friends, and then they spend at home maybe the rest of the hours. But just imagine if you remove 8 hours or 7 hours, which is sleeping hours for children, how many time do they have? Because sometimes they close at 4, 5, 6. Their parents are just back at home, and then they have to prepare meals. So they don't have time with these children like the teachers do have time. So it's important that the teachers know actually their parents, and they have to treat children like their parents.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some actionable tips. Maybe if you could throw some two of the most important actionable tips, if you think would be useful for teachers in the
Of
classroom
course.
setting. Yep.
Of course, of course. So teachers should really be open to ideas from children when it comes to assignments and all that, because sometimes you come to class and then you give some exercises to your children, and you explain the same thing to a whole class, and yet still just a few understand and a few don't understand, and you explain it in the same method. Some teachers will tend to feel like these kids are dumb or they don't understand, but the level of understanding for kids is really different, and the way you treat every child should be different from the other. So once teachers feel understand that the children that they have in class, be it 20, 30, 40, they are all in different level of understanding, they are all in different emotional states, they are all in different aspects of life, they're coming from different backgrounds, it will be easy for the teacher to actually interact. So the best teacher is the one that has fun and education all blend together with his or her students. So it's really important for teachers to encourage fun and education as well in schools as well.
Absolutely. Since, ma'am, you mentioned that, sometimes the teacher is, the full-time parent of a child is spending more time with the teacher and less with the parent. So what do teachers do in the case when, say someone comes from a very troubled background where their parents are not communicating properly with them? So I think the role of the teacher is more important over here. So how should teachers navigate these waters, if students come from very, sometimes parents just, tend to vent out on their students, on their children. So I think here teachers have the front seat. So what's your take on that? And also an advice for teachers in that case.
Well, I believe that there's a one-on-one relationship between a teacher and a child at some point, and there's a special relationship a parent and a child has that the teacher do not have access to at some point as well. So if one person is missing a step, maybe the best thing the teacher could do is not to go directly and to the child and say your parent did wrong to you also, but communicating with the parent directly, sitting down with the parent, communicating with the parent is really important. Like calling the parent, ask what happened, why did your child come to school in this manner, how can we help, because this is affecting your child's grade. I think every parent in his or her right senses want the best for their child. So if your child's teacher calls you and say, okay, your child came to school with this kind of mood and he was, reacting really radical in the school today, and what triggered this action, and the parent step back, that means you're absolutely not a good parent, because I think you should look for solutions for certain things. So having opening up to the parent, to the teacher, and discussing on these things, and then the teacher could emotionally support. Certain schools I will encourage to have this wellness centers, because certain things teachers could be good with just teaching and being friends with students, but when it comes to emotional attachment and detachment, they're not good at that aspect, because everybody have their own field. So having a wellness center in schools is really important, where we have counselors and social workers in the school, where children could go and cry, because all they need to do is just cry out their pain, and if they have that room to cry out the pain, it heals something. Because you don't want to have a child who is just gathering grudges and pain in his or her heart, and growing up with that, because that's going to affect his or her adulthood. So we don't want to have those kind of situations, those kind of people in the society. So let's give these children the space to cry out, because sometimes it's really not necessary for them to be angry or mad, but they feel offended because that's in the sector they are in. We all have been in the childhood sector, and we know sometimes for very unnecessary things. Right now, we could say, my mom once told me that I was ugly, and I got mad at her, and I went to school and I was fighting with everybody in the school, because everybody that looked at me, I felt it's because I am ugly, because my mom said I was ugly, so that's why everybody's looking at me. So these reactions are really sometimes not worth it to be cried about, not worth it to be angry about, but we as kids, we will not understand until we grow up. So it's more likely there should be open doors for children, between their teachers and children, between social workers and children, between parents and children. So there should be that parent-teacher collaboration. There should be that parent-teacher mutual understanding, where they are all focusing on the child's well-being, so they don't have to be emotionally affected at some point.
Very, very wonderful take on that. And I really love the idea of, opening wellness centers. Schools do have something of
Yeah,
that sort, but I think it should be, more comprehensive, to include a
yeah,
broad range of aspects. Once again, ma'am, thank
of
you
course.
so much for joining us
Thank,
again, and,
thank you.
taking us through your very kind agenda and also answering our questions. Thank you so
Of
much,
course.
and
Thank you.
have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you again soon.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Neha. It was nice having me here. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
I
ma'am.
really appreciate it.
Likewise.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.